I was walking down Madison Street just after midnight when I felt it. That cold grip on my forearm. Firm, desperate. The kind of touch that says, "Please don't leave me." The kind of touch that snaps you out of the city's low, hypnotic hum and focuses your entire being on the immediate, tangible danger. It was a cold night, the kind where the air felt thin and every breath was a small, stinging effort. The streetlights overhead, encased in their aged sodium vapor glow, cast long, distorted shadows that danced with every gust of wind, turning parked cars and empty doorways into menacing shapes. I had been walking for miles, just letting the city swallow my thoughts, a ritual I'd adopted over the years to clear the static and sharpen my senses. I turned and saw her, an elderly woman, maybe 75, 80 years old, frail, but with a fierce, almost frantic energy coursing through her. Her white hair, streaked with silver and tied loosely, had mostly escaped its bun, falling around a face etched deep with the lines of worry and age. Her glasses sat crooked on her nose, magnifying the terror in her eyes. She was breathing hard, her chest heaving under a thick, threadbare wool coat, like she had been running a marathon. The only sound louder than her labored breathing was the frantic rhythm of my own heart, responding to the raw, unfiltered fear radiating off her. "Please," she whispered, the word thin and reedy catching in her throat. "Please help me, they're following me." I looked past her down the dark street. Nothing. The city was in that deep, empty pocket between the last bar closing and the first delivery trucks starting their runs. Just empty sidewalks, closed storefronts with their darkened windows reflecting the sickly yellow light, a few parked cars under the flickering, buzzing streetlights. I listened, straining to catch any sound that didn't belong, a distant siren, the rumble of a subway deep beneath the street, the wind whistling through a nearby alley. Nothing. But I trusted my instincts. I had been doing this long enough to know the difference between the background noise of the city and the high-pitched frequency of real danger. The fear in her grip was not theatrical, it was existential. "Who's following you?" I asked, keeping my voice low, calm and steady. The simple, even tone was meant to anchor her, to pull her out of the spiral of panic. "2 men," she said, her fingers digging painfully into the sleeve of my thick denim jacket. The pressure was a mix of desperation and unconscious warning. "They've been following me since I left the pharmacy. I tried to lose them. I went around blocks, I tried to go into stores, but everything is closed. I don't know what they want. They just keep coming." I believed her. You don't fake that kind of physical manifestation of fear. The tremors in her hand, the quick, shallow breaths, the fixed, terrified stare. I had seen enough of it in my years working the streets, moving through the city's hidden currents, to know the difference between simple paranoia and a genuine mortal threat. "Stay close to me," I said, putting my hand over hers, a gentle pressure that was meant to convey strength and certainty. "We're going to walk to the corner. There's an all-night diner there, the City Grill. It stays open late. We'll go inside, get you a cup of coffee, and figure this out. The light and the people will give us a buffer." She nodded quickly, her hand still gripping my arm like a lifeline. We started walking. I kept my pace slow, meticulous, matching hers. She was moving stiffly, probably slowed by arthritis or old injuries that had healed badly. I positioned my body slightly between her and the street, creating a shield. Every few steps she would glance over her shoulder, a quick jerky motion that made her whole body flinch. We made it half a block, maybe 50 yards, when I saw them. 2 figures emerged from between 2 buildings a good distance behind us, near where she had first grabbed me. They hadn't been there a moment ago. They were moving with purpose, not running yet, but walking fast, a swift, ground-eating stride that was closing the distance far too quickly. They had a casual confidence in their movement, a predatory grace that betrayed their intentions. "Those them?" I asked, not looking back, relying on the peripheries of my vision, the subtle shifts in the shadows. She looked back for a fraction of a second, and her whole body went rigid, locking up like a seized machine. "Yes, oh God, yes, that's them." I could see them better now as they passed under a flickering street lamp. Both men, mid-30s maybe. They were the anonymous, capable kind of men you see lingering near construction sites or standing guard outside backroom poker games. One was tall and thin, lanky, wearing a dark hoodie with the hood up, even though it wasn't raining. The other was stockier, built like someone who spent time doing heavy manual labor, or more likely, time in the gym or in a confined space like a prison. They were focused entirely on us, their attention a palpable force, a beam of malice directed straight down the street. They weren't trying to hide it anymore. They had been made, and now the chase was on. The diner was still 3 blocks away, too far. They would be on us before we made it past the next intersection. They knew it, and now I knew it. I made a quick decision, a calculation of risk and terrain. "Change of plans," I said, my voice dropping lower, gaining a new authoritative edge. "See that old multi-level parking garage across the street? The concrete one with the rusted signs? We're going in there. Now." "But, trust me," I cut her off. The time for discussion was over. I guided her firmly but not aggressively across the street, waiting for the briefest gap in the scant traffic. The parking garage was one of those ancient, brutalist concrete structures. During the day, it was packed solid with commuter cars, a symbol of the city's grinding hustle. At night, it was a hollow tomb, nearly empty. The entrance gate was up, a silent, yawning invitation. We walked inside, trading the thin, open danger of the street for the close, echoing danger of the enclosed space. The fluorescent lights overhead, positioned haphazardly on the low ceilings, hummed with a sickly perpetual whine, casting everything in a uniform, nauseating yellow-green glow. I could hear our footsteps echoing on the concrete. Hers a shuffling, quickened gait, mine deliberate, planted, searching for grip. Behind us, almost immediately, I heard 2 more sets of footsteps enter the garage. The sound was distinct, heavy boots, a quicker pace, and it bounced off the concrete walls and ceiling. They hadn't even broken stride. "Keep moving," I told her, my eyes scanning the levels above us, the empty, geometric structure of the place. "We're going to the 2nd level. Fast as you can manage." We took the wide banked ramp up. My mind was working through scenarios, calculating angles, cover, and engagement zones, 2 against 1, possibly armed. I had my folding tactical knife in my pocket, the blade smooth and heavy against my thigh, and my 1,000-lumen tactical flashlight clipped to my belt. Not much, but I had worked with less. A knife and a flashlight, leveraged correctly, could be a surprising equalizer. On the 2nd level, I spotted what I was looking for. A massive central concrete support column, thick as a tree trunk, with good sight lines that allowed me to see the ramp from where they would emerge, and offered perfect cover. I positioned the woman behind it, tucking her deep into the shadow it cast. "Stay here," I said, my voice a breathy command. "Stay behind this column. Don't move. Don't make a sound. Don't come out until I tell you it's clear. Understand? What are you going to do?" Her voice was a terrified, barely audible tremor. "Find out what they want," I said, already turning away. I walked back toward the top of the ramp, putting distance between them and her. If things went bad, I needed her out of the immediate chaotic danger zone. I needed the fight to be focused entirely on me. The 2 men appeared at the top of the ramp a moment later. They saw me instantly, silhouetted in the hum of the fluorescent light, standing alone near a row of empty parking spaces. They stopped. We were maybe 30 feet apart, the distance filled only by the thick, stale air and the unnerving echo of the garage. I could see their faces clearly now. The tall one had a sparse, thin beard and hollow cheeks that made him look perpetually hungry. The stocky one had a shaved head and a brutal, jagged scar that ran from his hairline down the left side of his face. His expression was a mask of cold impatience. "Help you with something?" I called out. My voice was amplified by the concrete cavern, echoing and distorting the simple question. The tall one smiled, a slow, predatory curving of the lips that revealed too much of his teeth. It was not a friendly smile. "Where's the old lady?" "Not your concern," I replied, standing my ground. "Yeah, it is," the stocky one said. His voice was deep, rough, like gravel scraping on concrete. He took a deliberate step forward. "She's got something that belongs to us, and we're being paid good money to retrieve it. What would that be?" "None of your goddamn business," the tall one sneered, his hands tucked deep into the pockets of his hoodie. "Just hand her over and walk away, pal. Nobody has to get hurt. This doesn't concern you." "See, that's where you're wrong," I said, letting a trace of my own cold anger creep into my tone. "She asked me for help. She was afraid and alone, and you 2 were hunting her. That makes it my concern." The 2 men exchanged a quick, knowing glance. Some unspoken, cynical communication passed between them, a judgment on my perceived foolishness. The stocky one, the one with the scar, reached behind his back, a slow, practiced motion. I tensed, every muscle in my body tightening, ready to explode into motion. But he just adjusted his jacket, his movement precise. He was showing me. He had a gun tucked into his waistband, a black, heavy outline against the pale fabric of his shirt. "Last chance," he said, his voice dropping an octave, a promise of violence in the sound. "Walk away, we take the old woman, you go home. End of story." I didn't move. I shifted my stance slightly, moving my weight to the balls of my feet. "Not happening," the tall one sighed, a theatrical, exasperated sound, as if I were being entirely unreasonable, a child refusing to take a simple order. "Your funeral, man." We tried to be polite. They started walking toward me, slow, confident. The movement was a psychological tactic, a deliberate projection of dominance. They wanted me to break, to run, to surrender the woman. The stocky one kept his right hand near his gun, a silent, continuous threat. I let them close the distance, allowing them to shorten the gap to about 15 feet, the perfect engagement range. Then, in a single, fluid motion, I pulled my tactical flashlight from my belt and clicked it on. I aimed the beam directly at their faces. The light was a focused 1,000-lumen blast of white-hot intensity. In the pitch-dark cavern of the garage, it was instantly, brutally blinding. Both men gasped, throwing their hands up instinctively to shield their eyes, cursing loudly, their smooth approach fractured by the sudden assault on their vision. I didn't wait. I closed the distance to the tall one in 3 quick, powerful steps, the sound of my sneakers muffled by the concrete. He was still trying to blink the white spots out of his vision. I drove my right shoulder into his chest with all my momentum. He went down hard, the wind knocked out of him, the back of his head connecting with the unforgiving concrete with a sickening, wet crack. He didn't move. The stocky one, faster and more composed, was already lunging for his gun. I was closer. I grabbed his wrist with both hands, twisting hard against the joint, simultaneously driving my knee into his gut. The blow was sharp, focused. He grunted, a short, involuntary sound, and doubled over, his grip on his gun failing. I wrenched the weapon from his waistband, a heavy automatic, and hurled it across the garage floor. It skittered and bounced, the metal clattering before it disappeared with a final metallic thunk under a far-off parked car. He straightened up, roaring, shaking off the pain, coming at me swinging. He was pure, brute strength. The first punch was a wide, heavy haymaker. I partially blocked it, but it caught me square in the ribs, a jolting, crushing impact. I felt the air rush out of my lungs in a burning gasp, the pain immediate and sharp. I stumbled backward, creating a sliver of space, trying to recover my breath. He pressed forward, closing the space I'd fought for, throwing a tight, fast combination. I managed to block the next 2 punches, a blurring deflection with my forearms, but the third, a straight left, clipped me hard on the shoulder. Behind him I saw movement. The tall one, his head ringing but his survival instinct kicking in, was groaning and starting to push himself to his feet, crawling. I was running out of time. 2 against 1, even if I'd disabled the gun, was a losing proposition in a confined space. I feinted sharply to the left, drawing his focus, then drove a hard, snapping right cross into the stocky guy's jaw. His head snapped back with a wet sound, but he stayed on his feet, wobbling, tough, hardened. I followed up immediately with a swift, powerful kick to his right knee. It was a well-placed shot. He cried out, the joint buckling instantly beneath his weight. He staggered, off balance. I grabbed him by the lapels of his jacket and used his own staggering momentum to throw him hard into the massive concrete column. He hit it face first, a low, solid impact that reverberated through the structure. He slid down the column, unconscious, a dark smear on the yellow concrete. The tall one was on his feet now, rushing me from behind. A desperate, clumsy tackle. I heard his heavy footsteps and spun, but I wasn't fast enough, my reaction slowed by the aching in my ribs. He tackled me low, and we both went down in a messy sprawl of limbs and flailing force. He was heavier than he looked, and he scrambled on top trying to pin my arms. He managed to drive one heavy, glancing punch to my face, a blurring shot that split my lip open. I tasted the metallic tang of my own blood instantly. I bucked my hips, throwing him off balance just enough to free my legs. I scrambled, bringing my legs up and wrapping them tightly around his neck, locking them into a tight, scissor-hold triangle choke. I squeezed and twisted, forcing the pressure onto his carotid artery, cutting off the blood flow to his brain. He made a choking, gurgling sound and tried to claw at my legs, pulling desperately at the grip. I held on. I focused on the pressure. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. His struggles weakened, growing slower, more frantic, less effective. Then, with a final shuddering sigh, his body went limp, his arms falling to the concrete. I released him, pushing his unconscious weight off me. He rolled onto his back, gasping and sucking air back into his burning lungs, staring blankly at the sickly yellow ceiling light. I stood up, shaking, breathing hard, the adrenaline starting to taper off, leaving a dull ache in its wake. My face was throbbing where he had hit me. My ribs ached with every breath, a warning that something was likely bruised if not fractured. But I was functional. Both men were down. The stocky one was groaning, a low, miserable sound, trying to push himself up on one elbow. The tall one was still gasping, struggling to find a rhythm to his breathing. I walked over to the stocky one, the tougher one, the one who had felt the need to display a gun. I placed the toe of my boot hard against his back, pressing down firmly, pinning him against the cool, rough concrete. "Let's try this again," I said, my voice low and dangerous, forcing him to look up at me. "What do you want with her, and be smart about your answer?" "Go to hell," he muttered, trying to fight the pressure of my foot. I pressed harder, twisting my heel slightly. So a small, involuntary cry escaped his lips. "Wrong answer. The next answer is the last one you get to give me tonight. Start talking." Okay, he coughed, the sound rattling in his chest. "She's got something. A flash drive. That's all we know. She took it from her son's apartment." "What's on it?" "I don't know, man. I swear to God I don't know. We were just hired to get it back. Retrieve it, that's all. Clean. No muss." "Hired by who? Give me a name." "Some guy. Never met him. Never saw his face. We just got a call on a burner, a description of the lady and an address, 5,000 to retrieve the drive. That's all I know. That's the truth." The fear was back in his eyes, but this time it was fear of me. I believed him. Low-level muscle. Plausible deniability was their business model. They probably didn't know anything beyond their simple, violent instructions. "You're done," I said, my voice cutting through the ringing in my ears. "Both of you. You're going to leave this garage. You're going to lose that phone number, and you're going to forget you ever saw that woman. If I see either of you, or hear of anyone else coming after her, I'll find you. And next time, I won't be using a flashlight." The stocky one nodded quickly, frantically. Yeah, we're done. It's not worth it, man. We're out." I stepped back, watching him closely. He crawled over to the tall one, who was now sitting up, holding his head, groaning. The stocky one helped him to his feet. They both looked at me, their faces a mixture of cold, deep-seated anger and a healthy, immediate fear. They limped, slowly, painfully, toward the ramp and disappeared down it, their footsteps fading into the city's background noise. I waited, motionless, until I heard the distant, uneven click of their boots on the street outside. Then, and only then, did I move. I walked back to the massive concrete column where I had left the woman. She was exactly where I had left her, pressed against the rough, cold concrete, her eyes wide, staring, a single tear track shining on her cheek in the dim light. "It's okay," I said, my voice softening, letting the command fade away. "They're gone. You're safe." She let out a long, ragged breath that sounded more like a sob of pure relief. "Thank you." "Oh, thank you so much, young man." "What's your name?" "Margaret," she said. "Margaret Tillman." "Margaret," I repeated, letting the name settle. "Those men said you have a flash drive, something you took from your son's apartment. Is that true?" Her expression changed, subtle but profound. The terror began to recede, replaced by something else. A deep-seated guilt, a desperate resolve, perhaps even shame. She looked away, down at her coat pocket. "Yes," she said quietly. "I have it." "What's on it? What is so important that men like that would be hired to come after you for it?" She hesitated, her thin hands twisting the fabric of her coat. For a moment, I thought she might clam up, refuse to tell me, clinging to the secret like a comfort blanket. Then, with a sudden, decisive movement, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small black flash drive. It was unremarkable, just a sliver of cheap plastic, but she held it in her palm like it was a live grenade, a device of world-shattering consequence. "My son," she said, her voice trembling again, but now with anger, not fear. "His name is David. He's a brilliant engineer. He works for a company called Hexagon Industries. They're a massive medical device company. They make things like heart valves, pacemakers, things that are supposed to save lives." She paused, taking another breath. "A few weeks ago, David came to me. He was scared, terribly scared. He said he had found something at work, something profoundly wrong. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. What kind of wrong? The company is falsifying safety data, she said, the words suddenly clear and accusatory, cutting through the silence of the garage. There's a specific heart valve they manufacture, the Sentinel valve. It's supposed to be state-of-the-art. But David found internal reports, engineering data, failure rates, internal memos, showing it fails at a much higher, statistically catastrophic rate than they're reporting to the FDA and the medical board. People are dying, Margaret. Patients who have that valve implanted are dying because of these faulty, defective valves, and the company is covering it up, systematically. I felt a cold, heavy weight settle in my stomach, far worse than the pain in my ribs. This wasn't a mugging, a domestic dispute, or petty crime. This was high-stakes, life-and-death corruption. Your son documented this? He copied everything, Margaret confirmed. The entire trail, emails, engineering reports, testing data, the real numbers. He put it all onto this drive. He wanted to go to the authorities. He had a whole plan, but before he could, they found out. They must have been watching him. 3 days ago, David was arrested at his apartment. They're saying he stole proprietary information, corporate espionage. They're charging him with massive felonies. They set him up to silence him. So he gave you the drive for safekeeping. He called me the night before they arrested him, she said, her eyes welling up. He told me exactly where he had hidden it in his apartment. He made me promise to get it and keep it safe until he could figure out what to do next. He knew they'd come for it. They must know I have it, and they'll never stop until they get it back and destroy it. Have you looked at what's on here? I don't know how, she admitted, looking distressed. I'm a retired teacher, dear. I'm not good with computers. David tried to explain the file structure, the encryption, but I didn't understand. I just know what it represents. I thought for a long moment, rubbing the stubble on my chin. This was immense. Corporate corruption, falsified safety data, people dying. An innocent man set up and arrested. This was something that could bring down an entire powerful company and save thousands of future lives. Margaret, you need to get this information to someone who can do something with it, I said, the gravity of the situation clear in my voice. A journalist who can expose them, a lawyer who specializes in massive whistleblower cases, someone with the platform and the resources to go toe-to-toe with a company like Hexagon. I don't know anyone like that, she said, her voice small and defeated again. I'm just an old woman. David is all I have in the world, and now he's in jail, and I don't know how to help him get out or how to protect this. I'm so far out of my depth. I looked at the small black drive in her hand, then at her terrified, exhausted face. She was completely out of her league, holding a thermonuclear device of evidence. But she was holding onto that drive like her son's life, and the lives of strangers depended on it. I know someone, I said. A journalist. She's good. She's broken stories like this before. Corruption, fraud, institutional cover-ups. She has courage and integrity. If anyone can help you, it's her. Margaret looked up at me, and a flicker of pure, exhausted hope ignited in her tired eyes. You would do that? Help us? I'm already involved, I said, looking back up the dark ramp, a fresh surge of adrenaline kicking in. Those men came after you. That means I'm in. Come on, let's get you somewhere safe first. Somewhere with light and people. We left the parking garage. I kept us to the center of the well-lit streets, constantly scanning the doorways and alley mouths. I was watching for any sign of the two men or anyone else who might have been waiting for them to check in. But the streets were quiet now. The threat had receded for the moment. I took Margaret 3 blocks over to the City Grill, the all-night diner I had mentioned earlier. It was a place I knew well. The owner, a man named Eddie who worked the grill himself, owed me a significant favor from a past, long-forgotten issue. I got Margaret settled into a secluded back booth, away from the handful of other customers, a couple of cab drivers, a few late-shift workers. I ordered her a cup of strong coffee and a slice of apple pie she didn't touch. Then I stepped outside onto the curb, away from the neon glare, and made a call on my own burner phone. Rachel Chen answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was already laced with annoyance. This better be good. It's 1:30 in the morning and I'm on a deadline for tomorrow's editorial. Rachel, it's me. I need your help. You need to drop everything and move. There was a heavy pause on the line, the sound of her breath catching. Rachel was an investigative journalist for the city's main paper, a Pulitzer-worthy talent with a reputation for being relentless and incorruptible. I had fed her information before, tips on corruption, abuse, and injustices I came across in my solitary work, that needed the full, exposed glare of a major newspaper's front page, things that couldn't be handled quietly in the shadows. "What is it?" she asked, her voice suddenly fully alert, the professional annoyance instantly gone, replaced by a journalist's razor-sharp focus. "I've got a massive whistleblower case," I said, keeping my voice low, hidden from the street noise. "Medical device company Hexagon Industries. They're falsifying safety data on their flagship heart valve. I'm talking a high failure rate. People are dying because of the cover-up. The whistleblower, an engineer, has been set up and arrested on corporate espionage charges. His mother is being hunted for the evidence." "Hexagon Industries?" Rachel asked. I could hear the immediate shock and recognition in her tone. "Are you serious? I've been hearing whispers about them for months. Nothing concrete, just rumors of unusually high numbers of complications with that sentinel valve. But every time we looked, the official records were clean. If you've actually got proof, I've got a very frightened elderly woman sitting in a diner booth with a flash drive full of internal documents, reports, safety data, executive emails, everything proving the company knew their product was faulty and covered it up, betting on their lawyers to keep it buried. Where are you?" I gave her the address of the City Grill. "How fast can you get here?" "We can't linger. I dealt with the initial sweep team, but they'll send bigger dogs next. 20 minutes max, I'll be there in 15. Make it 13. I went back inside. Margaret was still staring into her coffee cup, her hands folded tightly in her lap, the small black drive hidden back in her coat pocket. I slid back into the booth across from her. "My friend is coming," I said. "She's a top investigative journalist. She's tough, she's ethical, and she is the best shot we have at getting this story out. You can trust her completely. She'll know exactly what to do with that information." "What about David?" Margaret asked. The question, the most important thing in her universe. "Will this help him?" "If what you're saying is true, and the company really did set him up to silence him, then yes," I assured her. "Once this goes public, once the scale of their crime is exposed, the charges against him will fall apart. He'll become the victim, the hero, not the criminal." "And what about those men? What if they come back?" "They won't," I said, though I didn't completely believe it. "They were hired, disposable muscle. Once they report back that the job went sideways and that the evidence might have gone to the police, that's what I had them tell their boss, whoever hired them will cut their losses. It's too risky to keep pushing for the drive when they think law enforcement has it. It buys us time." Margaret nodded slowly. She wanted to believe me, needed to believe me, and I hoped fiercely that I was right. Rachel arrived 13 minutes later, precisely. She came through the door of the diner with an air of professional urgency, her heavy camera bag over one shoulder, a long trench coat over a business suit, a determined, no-nonsense look on her face. She was in her late 30s, Chinese-American, with short, sleek black hair and sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. I waved her over from the booth. She slid onto the banquette next to me, her movements quick and economical. "Margaret Tillman," I said, making the introductions. "This is Rachel Chen. She's the one I told you about." Rachel extended her hand across the table. "Mrs. Tillman, it's a privilege to meet you, though I wish it were under better circumstances. I understand you have information about Hexagon Industries." Margaret looked at me one last time, an unspoken request for reassurance. I gave her a small, firm nod. She reached into her pocket, her hand trembling slightly, and placed the small black flash drive on the worn laminate tabletop. Rachel picked it up instantly, turning it over in her fingers, examining the simple, cold plastic. "This is everything? The whole story?" "According to her son, yes," I confirmed. "Internal reports, failure rates, safety data, executive emails, everything proving the company knew their product was faulty and covered it up for profit, leading to patient deaths." Rachel looked at Margaret, her sharp eyes softening with respect. "Mrs. Tillman, I need you to tell me everything, from the absolute beginning. Your son's name, his exact position at Hexagon, what he told you, when he was arrested, every detail you can remember. I need the narrative to back up the data." For the next 30 minutes, Margaret told her story. She started slowly, hesitantly, but as she spoke, the terror began to drain away, replaced by the righteous anger of a mother defending her child. Rachel recorded the whole thing on her phone, asking precise, pointed questions, clarifying dates and titles, building the story's foundation. I could see Margaret gaining strength, the sheer relief of having someone with power and resources take her story seriously, giving her a visible lift. When Margaret finished, Rachel leaned back in the booth, her expression grim. She tapped the flash drive gently against the table. "This is colossal," she said, her voice barely a whisper, filled with professional awe. "If what's on this drive matches what you're telling me, this could lead to criminal charges against the entire executive team at Hexagon. This is negligent homicide on a corporate scale." "Can you publish it?" I asked, cutting to the heart of the matter. "I'll need to verify everything first, cross-reference the documents with public records, get statements from other sources to build an ironclad firewall against their lawyers," Rachel said. "But yes, I can publish it, and I will. This is the biggest story of the year. How long will verification take? A week, maybe 2 at the most. I'll need to be thorough. Hexagon will come at the paper with everything they have: lawsuits, injunctions, smear campaigns. We have to be unassailable." Margaret looked worried again. "What about David? 2 weeks is a long time. He's in jail, and now that they know I'm passing the evidence—" "I understand," Rachel interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. "I'll make a few strategic, anonymous calls tomorrow morning. I'll make sure the right people, the DA's office, key figures in the medical board, know that the evidence is already with the press. That should keep David safe. If anything happens to him now, it'll just confirm the entire story for the world, making him a martyr. They won't risk it." I stood up, pushing the discomfort in my ribs aside. "I need to go. Rachel, your priority now is Margaret. Get her to a safe, secure location. A hotel under a false name or a safe house. Do not leave her alone until the story breaks." "Where are you going?" Margaret asked, her hand reaching out instinctively. "I've got something I need to finish," I said. "Just a loose end." I left the diner and walked back out into the late, dark hours of the night. The lingering rush of adrenaline from the fight was finally wearing off, and I could feel the bruises forming on my ribs and face, cold and deep. But I wasn't done yet. Those 2 men had been hired by someone, Mr. Black, and that Mr. Black knew where Margaret lived, what her son had found, and how to find people to do their dirty work. They weren't just going to give up because 2 thugs had failed. They would regroup and try a different approach. They had to believe the evidence was irretrievably lost to a power they couldn't touch. I needed to send a clear, unequivocal message of termination to the source. It took me 40 minutes and 3 burner phone calls to people who owed me favors collected in the grey areas of the city's underbelly, to track down the stocky guy's name, Marcus Reeves. Small-time enforcer, worked as muscle for various low-level crews around the city, specializing in collections and intimidation. He lived in a rundown, low-income apartment building in the industrial district, a place of constant noise and perpetual gloom. I found his apartment on the 3rd floor. The door was flimsy, cheap-pressed wood, the kind that would give way with one good, determined kick. But I didn't need the noise. I picked the lock in under a minute, the small tool clicking softly as the tumblers gave way. Inside, the apartment was exactly what I expected. Cheap, worn furniture, a stench of stale beer and old takeout, a cheap old television playing late-night sports on mute, its pale light illuminating the dust motes in the air. Marcus was asleep on a stained couch, a heavy snore escaping his lips, still in the same clothes from earlier, his scar a dark line on his face. I walked over and stood above him. I pulled my knife, the heavy, folding tactical blade, and pressed the tip of the cold steel gently, precisely, against the side of his throat, right over the main artery. His eyes shot open, blinking in the sudden, sharp shock of fear. "Don't move," I said quietly, my voice barely a whisper, an octave lower than normal. "Don't even breathe loud." He froze, his breath hitching. Recognition, slow and terrifying, flashed in his eyes. You crazy son of a—" "Me. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me who hired you, and you're going to tell them the job is off, permanently. The old lady doesn't have what they want." She panicked, walked right into a police station, and handed the drive to the desk sergeant. "You understand?" "They'll kill me if I do that," he whispered, his eyes wide and fixed on the knife. "I'll kill you if you don't," I countered, the logic simple and final. He swallowed hard. I could feel his pulse fluttering like a trapped bird against the cold metal of the blade. "I don't know his real name. Honest to God, I don't. We just call him Mr. Black. He contacts us through a burner phone, sets up jobs, pays in cash, always cash." "What does he sound like?" "I don't know. Middle-aged, I guess, educated. He talks like a damn businessman, like a lawyer or something. Call him, now." "Man, I really can't—" I pressed the knife just a fraction harder. A single thin line of blood beaded instantly on his neck. Now! Marcus fumbled with trembling hands for his burner phone on the cheap coffee table. He managed to pull up a number and hit call. He put it on speaker. It rang 4 times, the sound loud in the small silent room. Then a voice answered. Yes? The voice was indeed educated, smooth, measured, with an accent that spoke of expensive schooling, businesslike, just like Marcus had said. It's Marcus, he said, his voice unsteady, ragged. About the job tonight, the old lady, we didn't get the drive. There was a pause on the other end, a silence that felt heavy and calculating. Explain, Marcus. She gave it to the cops, he rattled off, reciting the line I had given him. She must have panicked when we found her. She walked right into a precinct station while we were following her. By the time we got inside, she had already handed it over to the police desk. It's done. The cops have it. Another pause. Longer this time. I could almost hear the man on the other end, this Mr. Black, thinking, calculating the massive change in the stakes. He was weighing the cost of escalating a simple recovery mission to a fight with the entire city police force. Understood, the voice said, colder now. Consider the contract terminated, Marcus. You'll receive half payment for your time. Do not contact me again. Thanks, Mr. Black. The line went dead. I took the knife away from Marcus's throat, wiping the single bead of blood on his shirt. Good. Now delete that number and lose your phone. Get rid of this knife. If anyone at all asks, you never heard of Mr. Black, and you definitely never heard of Margaret Tillman. If you cross me, I'll know and I'll be back. Yeah, okay, we're done. I swear it. We're done with this. I left him there, shaking on his couch, and walked back out into the pre-dawn dark. It wasn't a perfect solution. Mr. Black might not believe Marcus's story forever, but it bought Margaret and Rachel the 2 weeks they needed. It was time. And in this line of work, time was often the only advantage you could ever get. 2 weeks later, to the day, Rachel's story broke. It was front page above the fold, the headline screaming in black, bold print. Hexagon Industries covered up fatal device failures. Internal reports reveal corporate conspiracy in heart valve scandal. The article was a masterpiece of investigative reporting. It laid out everything with cold, verifiable facts. The falsified safety reports, the internal emails showing executives knew about the devastating failure rates of the Sentinel valve, the pattern of complications and patient deaths that had been systematically dismissed as statistical anomalies. Rachel had done her work perfectly. The Hexagon Industries stock price crashed within hours. The CEO resigned by noon. The FDA and the Justice Department launched immediate aggressive criminal and civil investigations. And the final buried paragraph I was looking for, the district attorney's office had dropped all charges against David Tillman, citing a change in the legal landscape surrounding the alleged theft of documents. I read about it in the same diner where I had met Rachel and Margaret. Eddie, the owner, brought me coffee without asking, placing the thick ceramic mug down with a clatter. You see this? He said, tapping the front page of the paper with a thick finger. Hexagon. Crazy stuff, huh? People dying, and they just covered it up. Yeah, I said, folding the paper to focus on the headline. Crazy. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Coffee tomorrow, my treat. Big spread at the old place. Have someone who really wants to thank you. I texted back. Sure. Treat is on you. The next day, I met Rachel at a quiet cafe downtown, away from the city grill's neon glare. She was already there, sitting at a corner table by the window, the morning sun streaming in. And sitting across from her was Margaret. She looked utterly different. The terror was gone, completely erased from her eyes. She was wearing a brightly colored scarf and a gentle, peaceful smile, lighter somehow, like a crushing weight had been lifted from her shoulders. When she saw me, she stood up immediately. Before I could say a word, she walked over and hugged me. It was a firm, matriarchal hug, completely unexpected, and I stood there awkwardly for a moment, then gently hugged her back, my arms stiff, unused to the contact. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion, but no longer trembling. David is free. He's home, the charges are gone, he's a free man because of you. Because of Rachel, I said, pulling back gently. She's the one who broke the story. She took the real risk. Because of both of you, Margaret said firmly, shaking her head. She pulled back and looked up at me, a direct, knowing gaze. I still don't even know your name. I smiled slightly, a rare, momentary relaxing of my face. I prefer it that way, Margaret. She nodded, a quiet understanding passing between us. Then I'll just say thank you. For everything. You saved my son's life. We sat down. Rachel ordered coffee and a massive pastry plate, making good on her promise. We talked for a while about the aftermath. Hexagon Industries was facing criminal and regulatory charges that would likely dismantle the company. Civil lawsuits were piling up from hundreds of families of people who had died or been injured by the faulty valves. David was cooperating fully with federal investigators and had been granted full immunity in exchange for his testimony. He wants to meet you, Margaret said, her eyes shining with pride. To thank you himself. He insisted. That's not necessary, I said, a slight finality in my tone. I know, but he'd like to anyway, whenever you're ready. I nodded non-committally. I knew I probably wouldn't take her up on it. That wasn't how this worked for me. I didn't do this for gratitude or recognition or a place at a table. I did it because someone had to. Because there were people out there, good people, honest people, who couldn't defend themselves against the darkness that the city breeds. People like Margaret, caught in a corporate war they didn't understand, who just needed someone to stand between them and the overwhelming darkness. After we finished our coffee, I stood up and said my goodbyes. Rachel gave me a grateful, professional nod. Margaret gave me another brief, warm hug. I walked out of the cafe and back into the city. The sun was setting, painting the skyscrapers in shades of orange and soft gold. My ribs ached, a constant, dull reminder. But I felt the deep, quiet satisfaction that came with knowing the work had mattered. Somewhere in this massive, indifferent city, right now, tonight, someone was being victimized. Someone was afraid, alone, cornered. Someone needed help, desperately. I would find them, I always did. And when they reached out and grabbed my arm, that cold, desperate grip that says, please don't leave me, I would stop. I would listen. I would act. Because that's what I do. That's who I am. I don't have a badge. I don't have authority. I don't have the law on my side. I'm just a man with a heavy coat, a sharp knife, and a moral certainty. But I have a choice, and I choose to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. I choose to be there when someone needs help. And I'll keep making that choice night after night until I can't anymore. Because in a city this big, this dark, this hungry for the weak, someone has to.